Hello and welcome to FunBikes TV. My name's James and today we're going to be checking the electrical components on a GT80 Trail Blazer. The main area we're going to be looking at is the rear of the buggy around the electrical connections that join to the battery for the starting system. Okay, so the first thing we're going to check on the vehicle is going to be the battery voltage to make sure the battery's actually got a charge and the correct voltage in. So remove the battery strap off the vehicle and lift the cover up and pull the covers back off the terminals. Turn your multimeter onto the DC setting, which is a straight line with 3 dots underneath it. If it is one that has voltage on it, it needs to say at least 20, so it's to have the straight lines with the 3 dots and then say 20 next to it, which is 20 volts. Then put in the positive terminal, connect positive lead onto the positive of the battery, the negative onto the negative. You're then checking the battery voltage to make sure it's got the correct voltage in it. It's a 12 volt battery, so 12.5 volts on there is absolutely perfect. If that was reading 12 volts or less, then I would say to put your battery on charge, because a 12 volt battery is actually flat at 12 volts. When it's fully charged, it should read anywhere between 12.5 to 13.5 volts on your multimeter. So in this case, we know that the battery is good, however, the vehicle is refusing to do anything electrically, it's not starting. So the next thing to do is to locate the bundle of wires just here, which has the 2 cable ties around it with the leather cover on. Cut the cable ties to allow you access, and then remove the cover, which is velcroed on, to expose all the electrical connections within the vehicle. Okay, the one specifically that we're looking for is this one just here. This is the connection which has an inline fuse inside it. So we're going to open this up and you'll see you've got the inline fuse sat in there. You'll also see within the case there is a spare fuse. So with your multimeter, what you can do is to check whether the fuse is okay, is turn it on to the volume setting, which is a bit like a little speaker sound symbol just there. And then when you put the 2 probes next to each other, it will make a buzzing noise. Then take your 2 probes and put one on each side and listen for the buzzing noise coming from it. If the buzzing noise is there, the fuse has not blown and the fuse is working correctly. If there is no buzzing noise, simply remove the fuse, take your other fuse out of the case and transfer the fuse over. That is the most likely reason that you have no electrical power to the vehicle. Occasionally through vibration, wires can pull out of position even though they do clip on there. So also go through each electrical connection and make sure that everything is all pushed in correctly together. If everything's all together and you've checked the fuse and replaced your fuse on there, once you've done this, replace the velcro cover over the top, and then using 2 replacement cable tie it up to try and keep as much moisture out of there as possible. Obviously water and electrical connections don't go well together, and you need to help stop any corrosion, which gives you a better quality connection on there. And then trim your cable ties neat afterwards. If everything was okay there and your buggy still won't start, just run over and check all your connections around another points of the vehicle, making sure all the cables are tight where they go over towards the solenoid and where they go onto the side of the engine using a 10mm spanner or socket. One other thing that could cause a fault on it is the battery may have 12.5 volts in, but it's not holding the charge correctly. So you can actually do what's called drop testing a battery. So to do this, we'll put the multimeter back onto the vehicle. Okay, we're now going to do a drop test on the battery. One of my colleagues has joined me to turn the ignition key on this because you need 2 people to perform the test. Put your multimeter back onto the battery. As you can see, it's reading 12.68 volts on the multimeter. When my colleague turns the key, that will drop down. I'm expecting it to drop down a couple of volts for the pull out of the battery on this. If it drops down below, say, 10 volts, then the battery definitely needs replacing on this vehicle. So So as you saw then, it literally dropped almost exactly 2 volts down to 12.75. As you can see, it's actually already knocked out 0.2 of a volt out of this battery from when we started, which is absolutely fine because these vehicles have a rectifier on them and they recharge the battery when it is being ridden. That's that silver box just here. One way to make sure your rectifier is working correctly is to have a multimeter on the battery, and if your battery is say reading 12.7 volts when you before you start the vehicle, once the vehicle is started, that should then jump up to somewhere around about 13-14 volts, which means the charge is going back into the battery. If you'll find your battery is regularly depleting and dropping down, do a multimeter test with the rectifier on here by, as I explained, checking the battery voltage, and it will give you the correct, you'll be able to see that voltage is going up and recharging your battery. If your battery voltage is not increasing above the start voltage, you will need to replace the rectifier on the vehicle, which is one simple bolt and a plastic connector. If you've checked everything at the rear of the vehicle and your battery is fully charged and the vehicle is still not starting or is electrically dead, one thing to check on here is all the connections underneath the dash. The majority of them go into this large bundle of wires just here, so make sure that's pushed into itself properly, but also just check on the back of all your other switches and bits on there to make sure that everything is connected properly. One thing you could try, if it is refusing to start, disconnect the wires off the back of your red kill switch and then try starting the vehicle from there. You can obviously turn it off on the key. If it does fire at that point, that would indicate that you need to replace your kill switch button on the dashboard. We've now fully tested the electrical system on our FunBikes GT80. Thank you for watching FunBikes TV. My name's been James.